2 years ago, I made a video about Rene Guenon, a French metaphysician, philosopher, a writer who is famously known for criticizing the modern world from an intellectual point of view. Now, I'm not going to get into who Guénon was or what he did or what were his major works. I have already done that in another video. You can refer to that if you want. It is in my channel. But in this video, I'm going to talk about one key aspect of Guénon's writings that deals with the criticism of the modern world. And this video is about one of his major books titled On the Crisis of Modernity, which was originally written in French, but was also published in English as well. I do not have the physical copy myself. I bought it back in New Zealand, but I did not bring it with me. I have his other works, which I'm going to make a review about soon. But The Crisis of Modernity is one of Guénon's most basic works. It is a very readable work because it is written in a very simple manner. It's not so technical like his other works, such as Symbolism of the Cross or Reign of Quantity and a Sign of the Times, Man and His Becoming According to Vedanta. All those other books are highly technical, and one needs to be initiated into the metaphysical framework in order to have some understanding of them. The Crisis of the Modern World is a critique of modernity from an intellectual point of view. Guénon radically identifies the sicknesses of modernity not as merely social, political, or economic, but as symptoms of a deeper metaphysical disorder. Now, for Guénon, the modern world has lost its sense of what he calls the principle. People are living on the surface of things. For example, we go on social media, everything is related to surfaces. It's vanity, vain, so to speak. People are just posting photos of themselves and everything is just so superficial. And not just social media, but our own priorities, our own ambitions have become highly superficial. Now, Guénon identified this more than 50 years ago. And this symptom has, of course, magnified, multiplied, and intensified ever since. So the modern world is suffering from this superficiality, from this too much attention to outwardness, to external things, and to vanity, so to speak. And what remains is a world based upon quantity, material progress, and a purely human perspective that denies anything higher than itself. In The Crisis of the Modern World, Guénon describes modernity as the reign of inversion, where the lower takes the place of the higher, where knowledge is reduced to its most external forms, and where tradition, understood as the transmission of suprahuman truth, is replaced by opinion and sentiment. But to understand Guénon's critique, we must first understand what he means by the word modern, because by modern he does not simply mean contemporary. And I think it's important to make a distinction between modern and contemporary. Modernity was, so to speak, a movement, according to Guénon, a deviation from the traditional order of things, and a form of thought that was based upon simply material progress, increasing comfort, and quantity. Now, the first chapter of this book is titled The Dark Age. Now, this is a very interesting topic because it sort of opens the door to what is to be followed in the remaining of this book. And in this particular chapter, he talks about the Hindu doctrine of Manvantara, which is a Sanskrit term from Hindu cosmology meaning the period of a Manu. Each Manvantara consists of several yugas, and at the end of a Manvantara, the world is dissolved and renewed before the next begins. Now, a single Manvantara is made up of 4 yugas, or ages. The first is the Golden Age, Satya Yuga. This is the age of truth and primordial perfection. Humanity lives in full conformity with the principle, and according to Guénon, people at this stage have access to superhuman and non-human knowledge. Next, there's Treta Yuga, and then Dvapara Yuga, and finally the Kali Yuga. And as this cycle evolves, transcendental knowledge becomes less accessible and things become darker until we reach Kali Yuga, which is the darkest of the ages. And according to Hindu cosmology, we have entered this stage for 5,000 years now. And we are in the darkest period of the Dark Age, which is quite scary. Now, this is the age where materialism, individualism, and forgetfulness of transcendental truths prevail. Now, Kali Yuga contains the term Kali, which is a female divinity symbolizing the elementary, primordial forces of the world and of life. Now, the texts of Tantra have a very intriguing image of this period. They say that in this period, Kali is wide awake. Now, this crisis or this fall has also occurred in the domain of intellectuality and philosophy. And here we come across the idea of Renaissance, which is of great importance to know. This is a period of profound cultural and intellectual change that began in Italy around the 14th century. It is described as a rebirth of classical knowledge and modern science. It marks the transition between the medieval ages and the modern world, a shift towards secularism, materialism, and empirical science. What is called the Renaissance was in reality not a rebirth, but the death of many things. And what basically occurred in the Renaissance was the appearance of the word humanism, which basically asserts that man is the measure of all things. Men were indeed concerned to reduce everything to purely human proportions, to eliminate every principle of a higher order, and one might say, symbolically, to turn away from the heavens under pretext of conquering the earth. Another section of Guénon's book deals with the nature of science and the decline of intellectuality. There is no doubt that the modern world, especially modern science, has made great advances and accomplished great feats. It has made incredible progress in creating comfort. So modern technology has created this convenience that is just, it would have been impossible to imagine a century ago. But right now we have all these great advanced technologies which are fabulous and phenomenal and simply mind-blowing. But at the same time, we must understand that this progress in the purely material sciences has also caused a decline in pure spirituality and intellectuality. Now, according to Ganon, there are two radically different realms in science. We have traditional and modern science. Traditional science has existed in antiquity and still exists in some parts of the world, especially in the East. Now, traditional science is not, as many people assume, occult sciences as usually understood. Rather, they are sciences of nature that are based upon metaphysical principles. A traditional science is not a prelude to modern science, as many historians of science have thought. It was a completely different world, and it's not like a prelude to modern science. In civilizations of a traditional nature, intellectual intuition lies at the root of everything. In other words, it is the pure metaphysical doctrine that constitutes the essential, everything else being linked to it, either in the form of consequences or applications to the various orders of contingent reality. Now, since modern science has divorced itself from metaphysics, Guénon writes, science has lost not only in depth, but also, one might say, in stability, for its attachment to principles enabled it to share in their immutability to the extent that its subject matter allowed, whereas being now completely confined to the world of change, it can find nothing in it that is stable, and no fixed points on which to base itself. No longer starting from any absolute certainty, it is reduced to probabilities and approximations, or to purely hypothetical constructions that are the product of mere individual fantasy. Ganon, for example, says that the word physics that is so central in modern science today, it had a completely different meaning to the ancients, especially Plato and Aristotle. The term physics, in its original and etymological sense, means precisely the science of nature, without qualification. It is therefore the science that deals with the most general laws of becoming, for nature and becoming are in reality synonymous, and it was thus that the Greeks and notably Aristotle understood the science. Now, what is the main feature of modern science? I want you to think of that. It is experimentation, according to Ganon. It is this realm of experience. It is purely material and physical and has nothing to do with symbolism or spirituality. Whereas traditional science, for example, had a symbolic nature, and this can be understood by the comparison of alchemy to modern chemistry. True alchemy was essentially a science of the cosmological order, and it was also applicable at the same time to the human order by virtue of the analogy between the macrocosm and the microcosm. Modern chemistry, however, deals solely with the material aspect of the operations and is quite ignorant of the symbolic aspect of the elements. So, chemistry and alchemy constitute two radically different paradigms. They are by no means comparable. They're separate worlds, so to speak. Now, psychology is also very much central in the modern world, especially in the realm of sciences. People are obsessed with psychology, and interestingly, this science is a relatively new one, and it did not exist in the ancient world. It wasn't because they were unaware of the psyche, but because the psyche was assimilated in a higher order and thus did not have that much relevance, so to speak. People did understand it, but to be obsessed with the unconscious or with the subconscious was not something that the ancient scholars and philosophers occupied themselves with. It was not that important, so to speak. Psychology as it is understood today, that is, the study of mental phenomena as such, is a natural product of Anglo-Saxon empiricism and of the 18th century mentality, and that the point of view to which it corresponds was so negligible for the ancient world that even if it was sometimes taken incidentally into consideration, no one would have dreamed of making a special science of it, since anything of value that it might contain was transformed and assimilated in higher points of view. Now, we're not going to get into this subject too much because it might get a bit tedious and boring, so I'm going to talk about the other aspects of this wonderful book, and that is another chapter titled Individualism. Now, individualism, according to Ganon, lies at the heart of modernity. Individualism is the negation of any principle higher than individuality and the reduction of civilization to purely human elements. Individualism is the same thing as humanism that occurred in the Renaissance. A consequence of individualism is a negation of intellectual intuition. For intellectual intuition is necessarily a supra-individual faculty. Individualism has also played a major role in modern philosophy, starting from Descartes, who, with his cogito ergo sum, sort of inaugurated modern philosophy. Now, Descartes sort of reduced intellectual intuition into purely reasoning, and by so doing, he sort of closed the door to anything higher than reason and the individual thinker, that is, the ego, so to speak. In a traditional civilization, it is almost inconceivable that a man should claim an idea as his own, and in any case, were he to do so, he would thereby deprive it of all credit and authority, reducing it to the level of meaningless fantasy. If an idea is true, it belongs equally to all who are capable of understanding it. If it is false, there is no credit in having invented it. A true idea cannot be new, for truth is not a product of the human mind. Now, I'm not going to review all of this book because I think it's going to exceed the time limit, and also I think it quite unnecessary. If you're interested in this, you can purchase the book, read it, take notes, and you will benefit greatly from it if you do so. And for those of you who are serious students of Ganon, you of course have heard of this book, you might have read it, but I made this video as a review and a summary of some points that Ganon mentioned in this brilliant book. Hopefully soon I will make more videos about him, but till then, take care of yourself and thank you for watching.